The global commercial space market is accelerating fast. Analysts project the sector is heading toward a $1 trillion valuation over the next decade. To capture a piece of that growth, India has set a strict economic mandate. The goal is to push its historical 2% market share up to 8 or even 10% by 2030, targeting a $100 billion domestic space economy by 2040. Hitting those numbers creates a mathematical bottleneck. Earning 8% of the global market requires delivering hundreds of commercial satellites into orbit every single year. Relying on traditional rockets that burn up in the atmosphere after one flight simply does not scale. The manufacturing overhead alone would bankrupt the timeline and the budget. That makes mastering rocket reusability a mandatory survival mechanism. If a provider cannot land and relaunch their hardware, they cannot compete for the volume. As reusable systems drop the historical cost per kilogram to orbit, it directly correlates with India's market share curve. Cheaper access mathematically drives that volume up. To get there, India avoids a monolithic national program, deliberately splitting their reusability strategy into two distinct parallel pathways. The first pathway belongs to the state agency, ISRO. They are developing winged body runway landing systems designed specifically for heavy lift and deep space missions. The second pathway is driven by private startups. They are building vertical landing boosters powered by 3D printed engines, optimized for rapid commercial deployment. This is a calculated division of labor. For analysts and investors evaluating the aerospace sector, the question becomes identifying which of these two technological pathways offers the highest return on investment for specific classes of payloads. Let's look at the state-run architecture first. ISRO's reusable launch vehicle relies on aerodynamic gliding, similar to the space shuttle, to return to Earth. You can see the scale of this ambition here. Notice the black tiled nose cone and the sweeping aerodynamic shape of the RLV-TD demonstrator sitting in the hangar. The main physical advantage of a wing design is its ability to use atmospheric friction to bleed off speed. Instead of firing engines to brake, the craft surfs the atmosphere, resulting in a gentle, low-G return profile. That smooth ride is required for delicate scientific experiments, highly sensitive defense payloads, or eventually human crews. This schematic highlights the heavy toll of that smooth ride. The dead weight of wings, landing gear, and thermal tiles bolts onto the rocket body. Watch the payload volume shrink dramatically as this structural mass increases. You trade orbital capacity for landing hardware. There is also a massive infrastructure dependency. A gliding vehicle requires sprawling, government-backed runways to safely touch down. That strict runway requirement removes commercial agility. You cannot easily launch and recover this vehicle from remote commercial sites or flexible maritime platforms. And once it does land, inspecting and replacing those fragile thermal tiles is historically a highly labor-intensive process that stretches out turnaround times. ISRO is actively accepting these trade-offs. They sacrifice immediate payload efficiency and commercial agility because their priority is the capability to safely return high-value, fragile national assets. Private startups like AgniKul Cosmos and Skyroot are taking the exact opposite approach. For their lower stages, they are adopting retropropulsion, which means using the rocket engines to execute a vertical landing. The physical benefit here is clear. By executing a propulsive vertical landing on a minimal concrete pad, you eliminate the need for heavy wings, landing gear, and miles of runway infrastructure. But physics always demands a trade. Startups must reserve 10 to 15% of the internal fuel solely for the landing burn. Keeping that fuel in reserve means it cannot be used to push cargo into space, inherently reducing the total amount of commercial payload the rocket can deliver. To offset that fuel penalty, these startups rely on a major manufacturing breakthrough: single-piece, 3D printed semi-cryogenic engines, like AgniKul's Agnilet. By fully 3D printing an engine, you bypass traditional multi-part assembly. It cuts production time from months down to just 3 days, and removes hundreds of mechanical joints that could fail during flight. This chart illustrates AgniKul's 5 for 25 economic model. By manufacturing only 5 physical rockets to yield 25 commercial launches, they decouple production from launch cadence. However, notice the massive front-loaded R&D cost spike. A single early failure can completely ruin these unit economics. Making this work relies on autonomous flight algorithms. The system has to perfectly calculate atmospheric variables and engine thrust in real time to stick the landing. Vertical recovery shifts the primary operational risk. Startups don't have to worry about human assembly errors or massive infrastructure limits. Instead, their survival rests squarely on software reliability and rapid machine maintenance. For space investors and analysts, evaluating the Indian aerospace sector requires matching the specific launch architecture to the exact mission profile. ISRO's winged RLV and next-generation launch vehicles serve a very specific high-end market. These systems are purpose-built for deep space exploration, constructing modular space stations and executing defense missions that require absolute government-backed reliability. If you are a commercial client relying on ISRO, you face a slower launch cadence and find yourself subject to national priority waitlists. The private 3D-printed vertical launchers fill that gap. They operate as a bespoke cab service to space, offering commercial satellite operators dedicated trajectories and rapid turnarounds without the wait. This quadrant chart visually maps out the segmentation. ISRO owns the top right quadrant for heavy strategic missions, while companies like Skyroot and AgniKul capture the bottom left quadrant for small, agile commercial payloads. The major hurdle left for the private sector is surviving the financial valley of death. They have successfully proven their tech demonstrations. Now they have to prove long-term profitable flight heritage. This dual-path approach positions India uniquely in the global market. Unlike nations that force a single space agency to handle everything from commercial logistics to lunar bases, India is dividing the labor. Handing low Earth orbit commercial logistics over to agile startups frees ISRO to focus its massive infrastructure and national budget entirely on deep space exploration. India is deliberately dividing the sky. By leveraging private sector unit economics to capture the commercial small satellite market, the country preserves ISRO's resources to build the heavy architecture required for crewed lunar missions by 2040.